Hello and welcome everyone. This is the Founder Scoop. My name is Jacob Lee and today I have with me Andrea Wilde.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me.
I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So Andrea, tell me, what do you do? And just kind of give me like a brief overview. Who are you?
Yes. So my most recent venture, I've had all sorts of businesses since I was 14, but my most recent venture is I own the Live Big Collective, and it's here in Utah. And I help wives of successful entrepreneurs take care of themselves. A lot of times their husbands have all this support. Being an entrepreneur myself, I've seen that support in Utah. It's amazing. But there's not a lot of support for the supporters or the biggest supporters. So what I do with that is we have brought on different coaches. So parenting coaches, body love, macros and fitness, spirituality and mindset, and budgeting. And then I'm the business coach. And so we do private coaching. We take them on cool retreats. And then we do monthly girls' nights. So that's like my biggest passion right now, is just really helping support the biggest supporters.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And so you mentioned that you've kind of been an entrepreneur your whole life.
Yeah.
Walk me through that. Like what made you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think it was just the way that I was raised, very traditional. My dad worked as an engineer at Intel. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And my mom stayed home with 6 kids. And I think there was a version of me that was just like, oh, I love making money. Like, that's super exciting to me. So my very first job, or my first business, I guess, was when I was 14. I had a little kids camp thing going on. And so I actually made really good money back then. I think it was like $500 a week as a 14-year-old.
That's big money.
Yeah, I felt like I was rolling in it, and in the, 2000s, that was good money for a 14-year-old. But it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. It went from doing like cookie sales or mowing the lawns or whatever to make a few extra dollars to like, oh, I could actually like scale this and make this a thing. So I hired my sister, and we had all these different like snacks and crafts, and we had a theme every day and all the things. And I look back at that now and I'm like, I'm actually doing the same thing just for grown women now. It's like we have yummy food and we chat and we have themes for our events and all the things. So it's been funny to kind of look back and be like, whoa, that's kind of come full circle.
That's really
doing
funny.
the same thing I loved back then. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
So are your parents like super entrepreneurial too?
No, not. They've actually become more entrepreneurial. My mom started her first business, or her only business, I guess, a few years ago, and my parents have gotten into Airbnbs. That's one of the businesses that my husband and I have sold. But they weren't growing up, and it's been kind of cool to be like, hey, just so you know, you can control your own income, or, what about this, or what about some of these other ideas? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. But yeah, I wasn't raised that way at all.
Wow,
so
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what has really helped you during the hard times? Because like being an entrepreneur is not easy.
Yes.
There's a lot of difficult points. What's kind of pushed you through that?
I actually could demonstrate that from a story of when I first started my company now. It used to be called Live Big Little Girl, and I would coach women all over the country, just virtually. And how I started that is so many women would come to me. I used to live up in Logan. And they'd come to me and be like, Andrea, can I pick your brain? I have, this business idea or whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. So we'd go to lunch, and I'd just like pour into them all these ideas for, an hour and a half or whatever. And then I'd run into them at the grocery store or something, or around town. And they would just be like, I'd ask them like, hey, where are you at? How's it going? I want to hear all about it. They'd just be like, oh, it's not the right season, or this or that, or fill in the blank with whatever excuse. And it just really got me thinking, because I had been really successful in network marketing. I was the top 3% of my company. I had earned a few cars, all these things. I had these several businesses that I had sold. all of this stuff. And it got me thinking, like, why aren't they successful? Why can't they just take action? And I realized there were 3 things that were missing. One was, yes, you have to have a good business idea, like a solid business idea with strategy and where you're going, right? The second one is you have to have a solid mindset. And I think just having a mindset that, like, you can get through those hard times, you know, where you're like, okay, I'm resilient. I know I can figure this out, like the confidence, you know. And the last part was the community. And so to answer your question, I think I've realized there's been some businesses where I'm like, oh, it's not as lucrative or it's not as good of an idea. That's the first part. The second one is, oh, there's been times in my life when I haven't had a strong mindset and I've had to dig deep to figure out, like, hey, how do I become more resilient or have a stronger mindset or that confidence? And the last one is community, which I think is the biggest one. I think Utah, we're really blessed to be surrounded by such an entrepreneurial spirit, because it's almost like you're looking left and right and you're like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. Or like, oh, if she can do it, maybe I could ask her some questions on how this can work or whatever. And just having a mindset, your mindset built by being around that community. So sorry, that was a really long answer to that question, but I think it's those 3 things that have really helped me in my journey become successful entrepreneurially.
That's awesome. You mentioned there that you were like a top performer. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
What was that experience?
Yeah. So I moved from Portland, Oregon to Logan to go to Utah State. And then I was driving this like really crappy car. It was like a 95 Ford Taurus, like sky blue with the paint chipping off. And when you opened the car door, the panel came off. So you had to, like, it was like so bad, right? I think I paid like $800 for it. And then I got introduced to Mary Kay and that you could earn a car. And I was like stoked about it because at that point I had this car and I was like, I would kill for a brand new car, you know? And so anyway, yeah, I got into Mary Kay because I just saw the income potential and the car potential. And so I just kept going. And I feel like a lot of life lessons, entrepreneurial lessons, came from being in network marketing. And I loved it. Yeah. So I did that for 10 years actually. So
wow.
It was great. I earned 2 cars and yeah, top 3% of the company. It was really awesome and a humbling experience. Lots of highs, lots of lows, just like any other entrepreneurial venture.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you feel like were the skills that you developed there that have helped you the most as an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me think on this. I would say one of the biggest ones for sure with that is how to get rejection and just take it. And it's almost like the law of averages. You're like, okay, if I figure out my numbers, I'm a numbers girl. I love spreadsheets. I love data. But I think if you're just like, okay, 1 in this many people buy this or this amount or whatever, then it's just like, okay, I just need that many people times what my goal is, you know, carry the 1, divide, whatever. You like figure out the math for yourself. And then it's just like, oh, thank you for the no. Now moving forward to the yes. Like that just means that this next person is going to say yes. And having that mentality. And I think just serving people instead of having commission breath, just being like, hey, I'm looking for the people who I can really help. And I think that served me over and over again. The last one I can think of is I love Mary Kay Ash herself. She died, I think, in the 90s. It's been a while. So I never met her. But one of the principles that I live by that I teach my students to learn their own principles to live by is to leave people better than you found them. And she would say, pretend like everyone has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. And I think, honestly, if we I know this sounds so cheesy, but if we treated everyone that way, like, oh, everyone is important, whether they're a prince or a pauper or whatever their role is, that's what really makes a difference. And people feel seen and validated, and then they want to spread that to others. And I think those are some of the biggest things I learned from working with that company for so long.
Yeah, I feel like those are really applicable to anything. You
Totally,
want to do,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is incredibly useful.
Yes, I'm so grateful for those experiences. It's definitely transformed and corrected and adjusted my I don't know, the direction I am going now even.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so walk me through the change in your career then, because you're helping at Mary Kay's, and then you transitioned to being like a life coach.
Yeah.
What made you want to do that change?
Yeah. Short answer would be God. I feel like so many times, like I've had these adjustments. I did hair for 10 years, overlapping with Mary Kay, and I've had several other companies, and every time it's been one of those whiplash moments where it's like, oh man, like I'm supposed to do something different, and it's almost right when I felt comfortable. I don't know if you can relate to that, where you're just like, okay, I was finally feeling in a groove, and now you want me to do this. And so I would say, short answer is just like God guiding me to be like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? And I've figured out that, so it doesn't have to be such a whiplash moment, that when I check in with him daily, I'm more like, okay, here are my hands. Tell me what I need to do today. And I found that I have less like, you're supposed to go over here. Like, I'm trying to get your attention, So I'm trying to be a little bit better at not just following my own intellect and just saying like, okay, I'm gonna do what you want me to do today, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's cool. I love that you bring God into it as well.
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely helps a lot in anything you want to do.
Totally. And there's no way I couldn't. Like, even if I tried to think of another answer that wasn't so spiritually minded, I'm like, there's just no other answer. That's really what it's been throughout my journey. Yeah, for sure.
So what else has helped you deal with the whiplash of changing directions in your career?
Oh, that is such a good question. I would say my husband. I process things out by speaking it, and I feel like there's some people are your safe space that you're like, I can just be like totally myself and just say what I want to say or what I'm really feeling. And so I would say just having that support from my husband, who's also an entrepreneur. I think just having a community of people that get it, this is like, we all have to have like a little screw loose if you're an entrepreneur. I feel like you have to have a little bit of crazy. And so I really feel like just having a supportive crew around you, but specifically like one person. And for me, that's been my husband, Shane. It's amazing. It's made a huge difference where when I'm feeling all over the place, it's like grounding to just be like, okay, we can do this. This is the plan. We've known this all along, God wants us to do this. It feels a little, sideways or off the path or whatever. So I feel like that's what's truly helped ground me once God's like, okay, this is what you got to do, know. So.
And it kind of goes back to the idea you said earlier about community.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
You gotta have supportive people in your court.
Yeah. And it's usually not the people that you would think are your supportive community. Oftentimes it's like, well, think of your parents. My parents, they've been supportive the best that they could, but there's been some times when I'm sure they're like, Andrea, what are you doing? Like, you're doing this again, or you're changing again, or you're starting another business again, like, and so I've realized that like they can support certain sides, but oftentimes when someone says you can't do anything, I think there's two options that you can run with it. The younger version of me, the less mature version of me, has been like, well, watch me, like, it's like made me dig in even more, to like prove them wrong. And that served me, that's actually how I earned my first car, was my mom was like, she sweetied me, like, not everyone earns cars, all the things. And I was just like, well, watch me, I'm going to do it. And I did it. But now as I've gotten older, I've also realized that like, that's just their own when someone says you can't do something or they're not supportive, that's what they believe for themselves. And it sounds crazy until you do it, and then it's brilliant, right? And so I think there's a more maybe humble version of me that has just been like, oh, I'm sorry that they feel that way, but I'm actually going this way, and I know with God on my side, like I can do whatever he's told me that where we're headed, you know, or we're partnered in that. And so I've softened maybe a little bit, not so stubborn. But I think both have served me in different times of my life. Yeah.
So tell me more about like the vision you have for the future. Like,
yeah.
You started lots of different businesses. You sold them.
Yes.
Is your current business kind of your ride and die, or what is your plan?
Yeah. Kind of going back to the whiplash times that God has redirected things. I have learned that, you know, I kind of thought Mary Kay or hair, or, you know, I owned a window cleaning and Christmas light business that we sold. Like all of these businesses, I'm like, no, this is great. I love it. Let's keep it going, you know. And I felt to pivot multiple times. And so I've learned that, like, for now, that's what I feel good about doing is the Live Big Collective. But who knows? I'm definitely following, co-creating with God on this. But as of now, I have big goals for what it looks like. So I kind of burned my business to the ground this last year. I've had it for 3.5 years, coming up on 4 years. And like I said, I was coaching all over the country, and I felt super strongly to pivot to just hone in on this niche that these women need, that support in supporting their husbands in their entrepreneurial endeavors. And they're the CEO of their home, right? And so for me, I've just felt like, okay, I'm going to go all in with this until God tells me not to. So some of those goals are, I have a chapter up in Logan. I have a chapter in Utah County, and we're actually opening up next week in St. George. And then I'm going to be filling in those spots, like one in Salt Lake and Park City, and probably like Ogden area or Bountiful, and you know, maybe Cedar City or other parts of Utah County, just kind of building those chapters, because I think it's so important to have people who live by you, where you can take your kids to the park or whatever, and talk about real things. I think a frustration I have found in my own journey is sometimes when I hang out with friends that don't have their own business going on or work or whatever, stay-at-home moms, sometimes, because I consider myself a stay-at-home mom, but I have my own company as well, sometimes they end up talking about people instead of ideas. And it's almost out of like, what else do you use your brain on? And so I have found that, like, I want to gather more women who are like, hey, let's read books together. Let's challenge our brains. Let's, you know, see how we can build other women up. The only time we're talking about other people is because you're like, oh, don't you just love her? Like, she's the best, or this is what I love about her. But let's talk about like ideas of how we can make our households better, or our communities, or come up with business ideas, you know? And so I think that's where I'm headed, is I want to have this transformation of that women are feeling so empowered in themselves and confident in themselves that they don't need to tear anyone else down, and they actually get to build others and create that in their own homes too. And if I can do that all over Utah, I just keep picturing this ripple effect that if they're taking care of themselves during their morning routine, for example, which is one of the very first things I teach, then after that it's carrying on to their kids and their kids' friends and their communities. Yeah, I have big visions for that. So my goal by the end of the year is 250 members, and I have like 17 right now. So we just relaunched. Goal, yeah, we just relaunched a few months ago. And so it's starting to really like gain traction now. And so I'm like, okay, we can do it, but it still feels big, you know? So yeah, just gathering the right women in.
Well, so with such a big goal,
uh-huh.
how do you balance your life and your
Yeah.
relationships? Like you mentioned your husband, he's also an
Yes.
entrepreneur.
Yes.
How do you balance everything?
Totally. I think the biggest thing is actually my morning routine, that I wake up in the morning and I do, it's called LIVEBIG. It's an acronym, Live Big. And I just think when I am fulfilled emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, then everything else can fall into place. Another answer for this that you probably would have not expected is I follow my hormone cycle, actually. So when I am ovulating, there's like a lot of different things that happen that you have way more energy. And then when you're on your period, the opposite happens. And so I'm not sure if you and Amanda talk about that ever, but I actually really follow that. And so that it's surprising because so many people will be like, how are you doing all of these things? And blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get that question. But it comes down to doing the things every day to be fulfilled and get your cup full so it can flow over. But also for women following our cycles where I go really hard 1 week of the month, and then the others I follow my cycle to just be a little bit more cognizant of being like, okay, I'm going to receive spiritual downloads so that I know how to execute the other parts of my life. I grew up being the biggest tomboy ever, so it's funny that I did hair and Mary Kay, and that I lead women now because I always felt more comfortable talking about sports and just being one of the guys, you know. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much strength in being a woman and leaning into those things instead of trying to become like a man, where we have both sides, the yin and the yang, for a reason. And so leaning into some of those strengths has really helped me kind of juggle it all. And there's times when I'm stressed and, you know, whatever, but I have to kind of regroup and reevaluate, be like, there's no need for that. It doesn't need to be that way. And all of this is a choice, right? And then kind of leaning into that has really served me that way.
Yeah. You've mentioned how important your morning routine has been, and the Live Big acronym. What is your morning routine actually look like?
Okay. I'll give you like a shortened version of it. So like I said, it's LIVEBIG. L is learn. So for me, that's through books. I love reading self-development books, but it could be podcasts, it could be audiobooks, or if you invest in a course or something like that. But learning something every day is huge. I always tell my students that if you read 10 pages a day, you'll read 18 200-page books a year. Wow. Which I think oftentimes, especially if someone's not a reader, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so many books, like 0 to 18. But it's like, oh, it's only 10 pages a day. I can do that, you know. So that's L. I is inspiration. And so for me, that looks like, have you ever read the book Two Chairs or heard of that?
No,
yeah, it's not a super common book, but it has changed my life. It's actually having a conversation with God every day where you picture him actually in
I have heard that idea,
have you?
Actually, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's life-changing. Yeah. Yes. And so writing down a poignant question, like for example, like I knew you were going to interview me today, right? So I showered, I got ready, all of the things. And when I'm interviewing someone else, I'm for sure like thinking through what questions and all the things, but we don't always treat our relationship with our ultimate mentor, which is God, right? Of being like, hey, if I could have this one question answered and I'm going to write it down and think through the question and actually write down the answers, like he's the ultimate mentor. He knows us the best, you know? And so I sit with him every morning in my Two Chairs question. Then visualization is V, of just like visualizing how you want your day to go or big goals that you have and aligning your vibration to allow that to come into your life. I really think that makes a big difference.
Does that include like vision boards and stuff?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not as good with vision boards. Like I make one, and this year we actually did it for a girls' night. We did like a bingo vision board where you write all the things down on your board. But I feel like I I'm like one track mind. So I almost think I need to focus on like one thing till I hit it, you know? Yeah. But a lot of my students do that with their vision boards or vision boards on their phone or whatever, and just kind of sit with the feelings that would come from that visualization. E is exercise. So I just try to move my body in a state of gratitude, versus punishment. Sometimes we want to be like, oh, I ate this, you know, cookie, so I need to like burn it off, where it's just like, no, let's not punish our body. Let's move it in a state of gratitude. So that's live. And then BIG, B is bless others. So doing something, one intentional thing a day to bless someone else. So actually this morning in my visualization, I visualized what friend I'm going to bring a swig to on my way home from this. Sometimes it's just a text or a handwritten card or something. But today when I was praying on it, I was like, I know exactly who needs just uplifting today. And so I'm just going to bring him a swig on the way home. Then I am affirmations. And so oftentimes people think they're not saying affirmations daily, when really we're all affirming things all day long. So which one are you going to listen to? I picture Kronk from Emperor's New Groove with like the, you know, angel and devil, where it's like, okay, which version of you are you going to listen to? And so just retraining some of those things, those thoughts that aren't serving us, I think is huge. And then the last one is gratitudes. So I focus on 3 gratitudes a day of what happened the day before. So that way I start taking these little like snapshots or screenshots of the day, and be like, oh, that's going to be in my gratitude tomorrow, which this will be my gratitude tomorrow. I've loved chatting with you, Jacob. So I feel like it helps you slow down and be in the present when you're constantly focusing on those gratitude pieces. So I know that sounds like a lot, but I always start with my students by saying just do 1 minute a day on each of those. Or maybe you're already good at exercise and you're like, okay, I exercise for an hour, and then you have 6 minutes that you're doing all the other things. But just starting in a place where you're being really intentional with your morning routine helps you. I think, you know, I teach women this, but men too. But women, I think, we're doing a lot of giving, especially as mothers. And so when you can just make sure that your cup is full every day, then whatever's on top of that cup I think of it like a teacup versus like a bucket. A teacup, you're like filling it every day so that whatever is flowing over that into your saucer, that's what you're giving to people. Instead of a bucket, you're like, I don't know, where it's too, you know, it's negative at some point or whatever. You're just giving. And so that's what fuels me every day to just feel confident in myself, in my relationships. But
so
yeah,
I like that acronym, and I think that's really cool, and it's a diversified system.
Totally.
So how long does it take you to actually do all those things?
Yeah, it depends on the day. But for example, this morning, I worked out for 45 minutes. I actually did my inspiration with my husband this morning. That we tried something new today. That's cool. And because we both do our Live Big mornings, but we do them separately, but at the same time. And today there's something we're really working through, a decision we're trying to make that feels really big. So we're like, hey, let's partner together and with Christ and say, okay, what do we need to do on this? So that was a little different. That was probably a half hour when usually it's maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes for my inspiration. Visualization was like 5 minutes this morning. I listened to a podcast on the way here, so that was like a half hour. Bless others, I'm doing that one later. Affirmations, I write down my affirmations, so that takes like 10 minutes. I just write the same one over and over. I am whole, complete, lacking in nothing. And then gratitudes takes like 1 minute. So I don't know what that equals, but that was kind of a typical. Well. Yeah, totally.
I was kind of imagining they're all done in the morning in a block.
Yeah,
no, it's cool that you spread
usually
it
is, but I think you just like rolling with life a little bit. My masculine wants to be like, oh, it's this amount of time and all planned out. And then my feminine is more like, okay, what does my spirit need today? And kind of bringing in both of those. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So you've mentioned the importance of having people in your life that support you and help you.
Totally.
What role have mentors played?
Oh my gosh.
Who has helped you?
Yes. It's so interesting because I think up until this year, maybe this last year, 18 months, I would just be like, oh, this person, this person, this person, this person. And I still have so many of those that I can still label. But like I mentioned before, God being my biggest mentor, it's become a lot more quiet, I think, in the best way. In that 2 Chairs book that I was talking about, it's so interesting because I can't remember if it actually said, you tell me if you read this book, tell me if it actually says this or if it was just a thought that I had. But for months, I had been planning this whole rebrand for my business and redirection that I was going, and I kept looking horizontally. Like I kept Googling and Instagram and trying to find someone that I could pay all this money to be like, hey, coach me through this, because I have had so many amazing coaches, a spiritual coach, tons of business coaches. I recently this year hired an paid ads coach. There's lots of external, horizontal mentors. And I just kept looking for someone who had done something similar to what I've been building. And I couldn't find him or her. And so I was reading 2 Chairs, and all of a sudden it came to me that I was like, oh my gosh, if I could sit down, like whoever fill in the blank is your ultimate mentor, Russell Brunson or whatever, fill in the blank. Just thinking through like, oh my gosh, what questions would I ask and how would I show up and all of the things. And then realizing that my ultimate mentor is God. He knows me the best. He knows the people I'm serving the best. He knows my insecurities. He knows my strengths. He knows my weaknesses. He knows exactly how much I need to keep me going. I started showing up way differently. I started I don't get ready for the day, but I'm sitting up and I'm writing down the questions and I'm praying and I'm searching for the answers and I'm listening to how he's speaking to me. Where in contrast, lots of my prayers before, I was in bed with my eyes closed, barely paying attention, repeating the same things I always did. And I was like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I have this ultimate mentor. He's free. I don't need to, I can access him at any point. It's not even over Voxer. It's just hey, I'm here. I'm struggling with this. And so I don't know if that's what you were really looking for, Jacob, but I think that that's my answer. That now I'm why was I looking so horizontally for so long when he's right there and it's exactly what is tailored to me. And it's even sometimes not what I want to hear. Actually, oftentimes it's not what I want to hear. And I've found that even with the coaches or mentors that I've had in my life that are here on earth, those sometimes are the ones that you need the most, that are just going to call you out, be like, oh, Andrea, you're doing this, that, or the other, and it's not serving you. And you're like, dang, that kind of hurts. Why did you tell me that? And so I feel like I've been humbled so many times where I'm like, oh man, I thought I had it figured out up here, but really I just needed to listen and again, co-create with God. And it's changed my life 100% and continues to all the time, all the freaking time. Yeah.
So. I love that. I feel like that's a great note to finish with, because I feel like God is the ultimate mentor. And
totally.
If we can bring him into everything we do, everything's going to end up way better.
Totally. And I've seen that time and time again for myself, but also for the people around me that are doing the same. It's there's amazing people out there, right? But they don't know everything, and they have, their own set of expertise or experience or journeys that they're going through, and God knows exactly like what we need for our own individual journey. Thank goodness, you know.
Amen. Well, Andrea, where can people go to learn more about you and your business?
Sure, yeah. Instagram's probably the best way to connect. I love when people follow me and they look like real people. I'm like, hey, let's be friends. Like, I think that's probably the best. So it's at the Live Big Collective. Yeah, I think that's probably the best. Or if they're here at iHub, I'm a mentor here and love to coach people. So would love to connect that way too.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.